Hello and welcome to Bruce Springsteen Guitar Lessons. Today's lesson is Bruce's Seeds. Thanks very much to Sven Schur for the request. If you're new here, please consider subscribing and hitting that bell icon for notifications. Okay, so today's video is going to be slightly different to the ones I usually do, where I do a walkthrough and I go through all the individual parts. This is because in this Seeds video, the part is pretty much the same most of the way through. So what I'm going to do is go through all the individual parts and have tab appear on the screen. Okay, so I've based this version on the Seeds Pro Live Shot in 2014. If you just type in Seeds Pro Live Shot, and the video will come up, and it's just a really cool version. So I've decided to base this whole video on that particular version. I think it's pretty similar to all the kind of full band versions that Bruce does. So now, also worth bearing in mind that this is a very kind of jamming kind of song. It's a very kind of, he's taken the main kind of riff and he's playing around with it a lot of the time. But what I've done is I've suggested a kind of a classic 4-bar riff that you can actually use throughout most of the song. So what we'll do is we'll go through the 4-bar riff. Now, so what we've got is basically an E5 power chord. So 0, 2, now you can get away, you can play the 2nd fret D as well. And then you also got kind of the C sharp note here. So 0, 4, 2, and then 0, 0, 5. I don't think he's playing the D string when he's doing that bit, but you can play around with it. So it's that kind of very classic blues rock kind of sound. So, and he's also kind of finishing most of the 4-bar riffs like this. And the kind of all the horn section and everything else, they're doing similar sort of things. So the key here really is also the timing. A lot of it's quavers, that's half a beat each, and it's also, the riff comes in on the and of 4 to start with. So what you've got is this: 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and. So again, the riffs start on the and of 4. It gives it this really cool sound. So basically, again, quavers, they work half a beat each, so you have 8 in a bar. Now what's happening is often the first one of each bar is timed, okay? So I show you that again. So it's coming in on the and of 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and. Apart from the 4th bar. So I'll go through each bar separately. So the first bar, again, you've got a little bit before it on the and of 4. So the and of 4, you've got the E5 power chord, and then we're going to do the first kind of main bar, if that makes sense. So you've got the and of 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and. Okay, so I would also advise palm muting this a little bit. You don't really want. He's kind of subtly kind of dampening some of the notes. Now you can play around with that to aim to get as close as you can to the original. So basically what we've got is this. So 2nd fret for the first 2 notes, and 1, and. Yeah, so it's and 1, and. Remember that first quaver is tied. And 1, and 2, and. Okay, so that's the 2 and, went 4, and then 2. Again, so the idea is all of these are pretty much playing the open E string and either the 2nd, the 4th, or the 5th fret for predominantly throughout this 4-bar phrase. So and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and. Now on the 4 often, I'm kind of just doing the basic open E string that you can carry on with the power chords if you want as well. So and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and. So and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and. So on the 2 we had the 0, 4, and on the 3 we had the 5th fret, okay? And 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and. And ideally you want to kind of bring out on the and of 4 that kind of hit it slightly more pronounced. It's more of like an accent. So and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and. Yeah, so it's a really, that riff kind of comes through. So again, Nils varies this a lot, but I thought I'd just do one that he, kind of a 4-bar riff that he does quite a lot in the song. So you can play around with it as well. So the first 2 bars are essentially the same. You've got and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So pretty much quavers like that, missing the 1, the start of beat 1, and then you're doing 0-4 on beat 2, 0-5 on beat 3, and then kind of open E string on start of beat 4, and then the power chord to start it all again. So, and then for the 3rd bar, suggesting again you're kind of starting the riff of the and of 4, and 1 and 2 and 3 and. So here I've suggested doing 2 5 frets. I think this is what he's doing in this song. So and 1 and 2 and 3 and. So again, so that's E5 twice, and 1 and the 0-4 on the start of beat 2 again, back to the E5, so and 1 and 2 and. Okay, so same as it has started before, but then do 2-0-5 like that. Okay, and then I've just suggested doing 2 open E string, or yeah, it doesn't matter too much. Again, you can play around with it. So the first, I'll do that 3rd bar again actually. So you got this, and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, so the first 3 bars of this kind of core riff, it goes like this. And 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, so that leaves you with bar 4. So bar 4, we're going to do this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Of course, this is kind of just resolves this 4-bar riff. So you start on the 0-5-2 again. It doesn't matter whether you do 0-5 or 0-5-2, if that makes sense. So here we've got start on the 0-5, then open E string, and then 2 of the 4 zeros, 1 E5, and then you've got this cool little run. It's in so many songs, that sort of yes, cigarettes and alcohol, that kind of classic bluesy kind of run. It's pretty cool. So that's the 3rd fret low E, 2nd fret low E, and finish off with the power chord. So that bar 4 again, it goes 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So 5, 0, 4, 4, 2, 3, 2, power chord. Hope that all makes sense. Again, the tab will help you out with that as well. Again, he does vary it up a lot. He's kind of just got this main 4-bar riff and he's playing around with it. So again, this is not going to be, he's not going to play this exactly all the same every time. He's almost jamming it really, because it's a kind of a bluesy type sort of jam song. So, and also the kind of essence of this whole song is actually the full band. So this will be a song that's be quite hard to pull off if you're playing this on your own. This is, you know, the whole kind of sound comes from all the horns, trumpets, and the whole kind of the bass and everything. So, but it's a cool riff to learn. I think it's a cool song. It's a cool live favourite as well. So all 4 bars will sound like this. So you got this. And 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Then you loop it. Okay, so that will give you the main 4-bar riff. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is go through one of the variations that Nils does, and also some of the stops that happen throughout the songs. It's quite cool. There's quite a few rhythmic sections where they're kind of stopping all of a sudden and then coming back in. So I thought I'd go through a few of those. Okay, so basically what happens is the end of the first verse, Nils does a kind of 2-bar riff. So I thought I'd go through that. So basically what you've got is you've got your standard, in the first verse you've got your standard 4-bar riff twice, and then you've got this, I call it riff 2-bar riff, okay? So you've got this, and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. This is another variation. It also can be quite cool for if you're into your blues rock and stuff like that, to play around with this sort of stuff. So again, so this is the end of the first verse, and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and cool. So I'll just go through that. So what you're doing is you're going 1 and 2, so 2 4 similar to before, and then back to the second fret again, so 1 and 2 and then you've got on the 3 and the 5th fret, and then 4 2 on the 4 and the and of 4. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then the second bar is on the beat, so there's no ties. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and so it's going 5th fret, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and so 5 0 4 4 2 3 2 0. Again, you can play around with this and add it in other parts of the song as well. Okay, so what's also I'm going to do now is put up the song structure. So again, like I've mentioned in other song structures, I like to keep it as simple as possible. Because this is more like a riff based, I kind of just put in 5 riffs, okay? So the 4-bar riff 1 is what you're going to do for most of the song, okay? So you can see the intro is Nils only before Bruce starts singing. So the 4-bar riff 1 you do 4 times, and the first verse you've got the 4-bar riff 1 times 2, and then you've got that 2-bar riff that we just did. Then you've got the first break. Now the break sections are actually, to help you remember, it tends to be where the horns and trumpets come in and all the break section. It's quite cool. So you do the break section once, then you do the second verse, which is the 4-bar riff times 2, and then you've got the break section, 4-bar riff, riff 1 times 1. And you've got the third verse. Okay, so the third verse, you're going to do the 4-bar riff 1 once. And then what we're going to do, this is where he says, don't know where I'm going to sleep tonight, and the band stops. Also, the band, everyone stops, and then the whole band comes in, which is a really cool little bit. So this is the end of the third verse. And what's happening is, he's doing the third verse, 4-bar riff 1 times 1. So you do that 1 time. So then you do the first 2 bars of that again. So and 1, and then this. It's quite cool. So you really have to pay attention to the timing there. So again, this is going to be, we'll call this riff 3. So basically the first 2 bars are the same as what you've had before. So and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And now the third bar, you're going to do this. And 1 and 2 and. So you're going to stop on the and of 2. So I'll show you this again. So imagine we're going to go into the third bar, you're going and 1 and 2 and. Okay, so you start off the same as normal. You're going, but you're going to go and 1 and 2 and you stop on the 5th fret. So you go 2 2 4 5 and stop on the and of 2. Then you have to wait and count and then come back into the third break as you normally would on the and of 4. So I'll show you that again. So this is riff 3. And 1 and 2. So 2 bars as normal. And 1 and 2 and 3 4. 1 2 3 4 and. So it's quite a cool little thing there. So that's the end of the third verse. Then you've got the third break. Normal riff, 4-bar riff twice, 4th verse, normal riff 3 times, 5th verse, normal riff 3 times, 4th break, normal riff twice, and then the 6th verse, you've got the 4-bar riff once, and then I'm going to call this riff 4. So this is the bit where he sings dead off the rack. It's a cool little rhythmic thing. And if you're in a band and, you know, doing all this sort of stuff, it's quite cool to kind of stop sections and come back in and really test your counting abilities as well. So basically what happens is at the end of, you're going to do the normal riff, and basically the 4th bar changes, okay? So I'll show you this. This is going to be riff 4 in the end of the 6th verse. So, and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and dead off the rack. Okay, so that dead off the rack is the same rhythm as the guitar and the drums. It's basically just going 1 and 2 and, if that makes sense. So I'll show you that again. So think of it as pretty much your normal first 3 bars of your normal 4-bar riff, and then just go 1 and 2 and on the E5 for the 4th bar. Okay, so I'll show you that again. So this is riff 4, end of the 6th verse. Bar 2, bar 3, dead off the rack. Okay, so that's quite a cool little thing. And I think the 7th verse then comes in on the beat. So instead of you're going and 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and 1, you're going, you can just start on the 1, if that makes sense. You're going to go your normal riff, but 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So the first one will be on the beat. And that's all kind of good rhythmic kind of skills to learn. Okay, cool. And you can tell that Bruce has obviously orchestrated all this and say, look, no, you're going to come in, you're going to come back here on the and a 4, or you're going to come back in on the 1. So it's really sounds really cool. So 7th verse, starting on the beat, and then it will carry on as normal, times 3. 5th break, your normal riff times 2. Then he's doing a guitar solo, so I'm not really tapping that out, but I've just basically just E minor pentatonic worked really well. You know, kind of Bruce is quite aggressive, kind of guitar playing. E minor pentatonics. If you don't know that, it's 12-15, 12-14, 12-14, 12-14, 12-15, 12-15. Yeah, you can just play around with that, predominantly in the first shape with E minor pentatonic. So he's doing 9 rounds of that. Then what happens on the 10th round, you basically do the first 2 bars of your normal riff in terms of, so Bruce will still be soloing and he's basically turning around and cueing for the band to stop. So on the 10th round, the whole band is going to stop here. And 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So on the and of 4 on the 2nd bar of the 10th round, that's guitar solo. Yeah. So it depends, again, if you're doing this in a band situation, whether you're doing the solo or the rhythm section. But if you're doing the rhythm section, you've got to think of it as kind of 9.5 rounds. So if I do that 10th round again, and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. The band's going to pull out on the and of 4 of that 2nd bar. And then basically Bruce is on his own for 2 rounds of this 4-bar riff, and then the band comes back in on the and of 4. So it sounds really cool. So they all know what they're doing, you know. So I'll show you that again. So this is the 6th break. So Bruce on his own just to start with. And 1, 2, 3, bar 2, bar 3, bar 4. Then the 2nd round. Then the band comes in there on the and of 4, so it sounds really cool. And then you've basically got 3 rounds of that 4-bar riff with everyone back in, and it quite cleverly is stopping the song on the and of 3. Okay, so I'll call this riff 5. So we're going to do the outro 3 times through your 4-bar riff. And then you've got this riff 5, which is basically going to start your normal riff. And 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and. So it's the whole song stopping on the and of 3. At least it does in this video. So I'll show you that again. So this is the last 2 bars. And 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and. Cool. So play around with that. Again, if you're not doing this in a band situation, you might not want to bother with all the kind of stops and the variations, but you can just kind of play around with that awesome kind of main 4-bar riff. Cool, so hope you've enjoyed that video. Any questions, comments, suggestions, please let me know. Give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. And thanks very much, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.